I'm Indy Neidell, and this is a World War II special episode. Now, it's a collaboration with the video game Hearts of Iron, and is the first of two. You guys have been asking in the comments if we would do something with Hearts of Iron for several years now, but until now, there wasn't really anything that seemed like a good fit, and that would be fun to do. Until now. A few months ago, the Hearts of Iron gang got hold of me and told me they had a new release coming out. It's an expansion of Hearts of Iron 4 with scenarios about the French resistance in World War II and the Spanish Civil War, and it should be out by the time this comes out. Now, they wondered if we wanted to do some sort of alternate history for these new scenarios. Right, guys? Yep. Well, much as I like the idea of being allowed to use some of their gameplay in an episode, because it is actually really cool, the immediate problem was, this is a World War II channel, covering it in real time. And I was still in 1940, and France had fairly recently fallen. The fully organized French resistance you see in books and movies hasn't really gotten going yet, and I did not want to break our chronological coverage of the war and get into the future. And as for the Spanish Civil War, while sure, it's super interesting, and it was in many ways a warm-up for some of the warring World War II factions, it's not really what this channel is all about. But since Paradox, who make Hearts of Iron, has a big office a 20-minute walk from my place in Stockholm, I went over and had lunch with some of their history guys and their developers, and we started talking about history. And I could have sat there all day because these guys not only know their stuff, they were really cool to hang out with. But still, what can we come up with that's relevant for both them and us? Well, we came up with two ideas. Okay, no, we came up with a bunch of ideas, but two we liked best. Possible points before World War II where a change in the timeline could have profound effects on World War II, one involving Spain and one involving France. Now, we went over a whole bunch of what-ifs based on those two, some apocalyptic and some, quite mild. And in a minute, you will see the fruits of our labors. First thing, though, a quick point about alternate histories. I've always had a big problem with them. The reason being is that the premises people throw out never make any sense. Someone might ask, what if Adolf Hitler died in 1928? I could not make alternative sense out of that, because how did he die? Was it suicide? Was it an accident? Was it murder? Those would produce three very different stories. And if it was murder, well, who murdered him? Was it his own guys? Was it political opponents? Was it cultural opponents? Was it a foreign antagonist? Again, these would all produce different reactions among the Nazi party, among the other parties, and thus they would produce different stories. And we haven't even gotten into why whoever did it. So I cannot stand general what-ifs, because even though a what-if is by nature unrealistic, those are too unrealistic for me. So we tried to make something more specific. In today's case, something that happened involving Spain that had repercussions on World War II. Now, I am not going to tell you the story of the Spanish Civil War and how it began and all that to set this up, though. You can look that up for yourselves. We have a Between Two Wars episode about the background to the Spanish Civil War that would help with that. Link is in the description. Anyhow, in our world, the real world, the nationalists, led by Francisco Franco, won the war, and after that, Spain was neutral in World War II, though, as we've seen in our regular episodes, still has some influence on it. So, an obvious what-if is to have the nationalists lose the Spanish Civil War. And I think removing Franco from the picture could help with that. So I'm going to try to reverse engineer that. And I think that could happen most likely just during or just before the 1936 July coup. Here are some actual events in our time that happened, and I'm going to cherry pick here to make my story, right? Okay. By mid-1936, you had a bunch of generals who wanted to take power. They had no problems with the idea of violently opposing the Popular Front government. Older generals like José Sanjurjo looked down on professional politicians. The young ones had no loyalty to a regime they thought impermanent, and they all thought they had a right to intervene. Hence the July coup. Now, the obvious figurehead for the coup was Sanjurjo. General Emilio Mola directed it, but he had to deal with some issues. The Popular Front had removed suspect generals from major influential positions. Franco, the former chief of staff, had been sent to the Canary Islands. Sanjurjo was in exile in Portugal. Mola himself was in Pamplona. Here's an odd thing. Franco wrote a June 23rd letter to Prime Minister Casares Quiroga. A weird letter. He implies in it that the army will remain loyal if they're well treated, but also that they're hostile to the Republic. It seems fairly obvious that Franco is hinting that if Casares puts him in charge, then no coup will happen. And let's be clear, the government has received repeated warnings about the plot. Well, Casares just ignored the letter, but realistically, it was a perfect excuse to have Franco arrested or just buy him off. So that's chance number one to get Franco out of the picture even before the coup. Franco was pretty necessary to the coup in general. He had a lot of respect from the Army of Africa, Spain's best shock troops, with whom he'd served. And let's be clear, the coup cannot possibly succeed without the Army of Africa. Franco is the obvious leader for them. They must not remain loyal to the Republic. So, Sanjurjo is going to be head of state. Mola will be a big cheese. The generals like Fanjul and Goded are assigned places where they will hold sway post-coup, like Franco will have Morocco. The top civilian leader post-coup will be the hugely charismatic Calvo Sotelo, but he is assassinated a few days before the coup. Okay, for the actual coup itself, Franco is to be flown from the Canaries to Morocco to take command of the Army of Africa. But there is one huge, major, possibly insurmountable problem. As military commander of the Canaries, his headquarters are in Santa Cruz, but the plane to smuggle him to Africa is on Gran Canaria. In order to go to Gran Canaria, he needs permission from the Ministry of War, and his request to make an inspection tour has been turned down. And then comes either the greatest coincidence in Franco's whole life or a dastardly act of foul play. And I know I still haven't gotten to the what if, but this is fun stuff anyway. Okay, on July 16th, General Balmes, who commands on Gran Canaria and is an excellent marksman, is shot and dies at a shooting range while trying out pistols. No one will ever know if it is murder, suicide, or accident, and the amount of debate is crazy. But General Francisco Franco, of course, must preside over the funeral on July 17th in Las Palmas. So he's amazingly in place for the coup. Now, that's actually chance number two to remove Franco from the coup by keeping Balmes alive. Okay, that evening the coup begins in the Moroccan garrisons. The next morning, Franco takes over Las Palmas. The coup and the civil war begin, and details, and then more details happen, right? And then on the 19th, Sanjurjo dies in the stupidest motherfucking plane crash in history. I'm not kidding. Easily avoidable, easily preventable. Look it up. Anyhow, now the nationalists are without their future head of state. Sotelo is also dead. Fanjul and Goded will be captured by Republicans and executed in August. Primo de Rivera, who I have not even mentioned, but I am now, just to stop the comments that say I didn't, is still in a Republican jail cell. So soon enough, only Mola is in any position to challenge Franco as leader, whatever happens. And Franco is his senior officer. Sanjurjo and Sotelo not dying are, I think, both potential game changers as well, but not to Franco not being in the coup, just to him as eventual leader. But let's backtrack to the first days of the coup in July. Franco has the Moroccan army, but what good are they if he cannot get them to Spain from Africa? And that seems to me to be the big issue. And guess what? The Straits are controlled by Republican naval ships whose crews had mutinied against their officers who were with the coup. So the Army of Africa really has no way of getting to mainland Spain. This was unexpected. Also, in the three biggest Spanish cities, Madrid, Barcelona, and Valencia, the coup had collapsed pretty quickly, so it is all fizzling out shortly after it has begun. So what does Franco do? Still real life. What does Franco do? He calls for foreign help. He cables again and again to Mussolini in Italy, who says no, 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 and no. Mussolini is concerned because he thinks France is going to send help to the Republicans, and he does not want to be openly against them yet. Until he realizes that they're not going to do so, and gets news the 27th that the USSR also will not help the Republic. So, he sends in bombers to Franco as air transport, though a couple of crashes alert the whole wide world that he is doing this. And the Army of Africa can slowly but surely go to Spain. This turns a coup going wrong into a coup going right. Sure, Hitler soon sends aid as well, and then eventually Stalin to the Republicans, and it turns into a long-ass civil war, yada yada yada, but no Italian aid in late July, early August equals failed coup. Well, to me at least. And it is Franco who is asking for the aid. Franco who's pulling the strings of flattery on Mussolini, and Franco that turns Mussolini from no to yes. Could Mola have orchestrated this with Mussolini as well? Maybe, but not in July, and certainly not while marching around northern Spain with his armies. So, let's say Franco was arrested after the letter. He's in prison and he's not part of the coup. That's my arbitrary point to pick, my reversed engineered point where we diverge from reality. Someone else ends up running the Army of Africa, but it cannot get to Spain and the coup falls apart. Well, what then? Okay. The Republic remains. Considering the other uprisings in 1930 Spain, I can see a general purge of the right-wing officer class and a collapse of right-wing influence, the Carlists, the Phalangists, etc. I mean, they have no unity. When the right wing collapses, a France friendly to the democratic factions in the cities and a Soviet Union to the ones in the countryside, well, that's in the cards. A shaky coalition of those factions runs the country, but a rift begins growing between them right off the bat. So what do the foreign powers do? Well, okay, France has to be ecstatic now that instead of 3 fascist states on its borders, it's only 2. France gives aid to the democratic factions now post-coup to help stabilize the republic. Britain is still concerned with appeasement, but I can see France sending help. The USSR, okay? They have diplomatic relations with Spain. They also have the 1935 Pact of Mutual Assistance with France. Stalin has changed his foreign policy in the mid-1930s so that social democratic parties in other nations were no longer anathema. But communist parties could now do joint actions with them. This is to keep things friendly with places like Britain and France because of the rise of Germany and Italy. So the Soviets can now send aid to those parties in Spain without worrying about Germany and Italy supplying the other side. I can easily see Germany and Italy sending aid to Salazar's Portugal, though. Okay, France stopped sending aid eventually. They have enough troubles with their own far right being anti-sending aid and their own political instability. Stalin will keep jacking up aid to Spain, though, increasingly militarily, especially, wanting a communist or socialist state at the other end of Europe. Also, Soviet military support and the purge of right-wing elements in the Spanish army leads over the months to a largely Soviet-sympathetic Spanish military. This is left unchecked. Who's going to check it? And in 1939 leads to a Soviet-backed communist coup in Spain. With Red Army support, the Spanish army invades Portugal, and after a short and bloody war, the Iberian Soviet Republic is declared. France is obviously thrilled now to have 2 fascist and 1 communist country on its borders. Okay, when the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is then created between Germany and the USSR, now it involves Iberia and Italy as well. See, with the Iberian Soviet a reality, it is necessarily a pact to divide up all of Europe in future and not just the eastern parts, hence also involving Italy. France is planned for 3 zones, 1 German, 1 Italian, and 1 Iberian Soviet, right? Germany invades Poland, but things go a bit differently in this reality. France and Britain still declare war on Germany, sure, but when the USSR also invades Poland, Iberia mobilizes and sends troops to the French border, and Italy declares war on France and Britain. I know that Italy has been unwilling to go to war with the West, but if they don't do anything now, they don't get any of France should anything happen. The Iberian troops do not attack France, so nor do the Italians, but the warning is clear. If you have a problem with anything France, you are going to get it from all sides. Britain withdraws the British Expeditionary Force from the continent, knowing they cannot fight Germany, Italy, Iberia, and the USSR at the same time. Once they withdraw, though, Hitler unable to resist, invades France and the Low Countries. Italy and Iberia follow suit so they don't miss out on their agreed-upon territory, Iberia now declaring war on France. France falls and France is divided. The USSR invades Finland and the Baltics. Britain mines Norwegian waters so Germany cannot invade Norway for the moment. Germany responds by invading Sweden and Denmark to secure at least some iron by rail and to stop Soviet northern expansion. I do not see a Battle of Britain happening yet. Germany and Britain have had no active war yet, and as far as Hitler is concerned, it's still appeasement. The wild card is Britain's Royal Navy. That navy is what prevented the Axis from taking all of North Africa, Suez, and the Middle Eastern oil in our world. Iberia and Italy are, in this world, taking France's colonies in Africa, and Italy, of course, wants Britain's. Now, if Italy makes a concerted effort to attack those colonies, Britain will send the navy to fight them. They're not giving up Suez without a fight. This, however, plays right into Adolf Hitler's hands. A massive and coordinated effort by the Luftwaffe and the Italian Air Force destroys the bulk of the Royal Navy in the Mediterranean. I think it's even possible that Iberia, who controls the Straits of Gibraltar, will bottle up any ships that manage to escape the Axis powers. British possessions in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, which I'll get to in a minute, are all now to fall. Britain is isolated on its home island, but with the well-armed BEF and the RAF there, Germany does not try to invade, but a peace is signed. And I think Halifax would be prime minister this time, and not Churchill, by the way. There was no Norwegian crisis. Okay, we know that Hitler's big plan in our world, well, in any world, right, is to attack the USSR and destroy Bolshevism, his ideological enemy. Does he do this with a powerful Iberian Soviet, not just in Iberia, but also holding a third of France? It's a big question, and I think not for the time being. So a stalemate emerges between the communists and fascists in mainland Europe. They carve up the Balkans, they carve up southeastern Europe. I mean, what's to stop them? So a Cold War begins in 1940 instead of 1945, and between communism and fascism in this case, the people of Europe suffer tremendously. Hitler said in Our Reality in 1940 that if Britain lost the Battle of Britain, Germany would not be the big winner because Japan would take Britain's Asian possessions, Italy the African ones, and the Soviet Union, India. Well, without the Royal Navy and without even a Vichy France, then Japan surely takes British, French, and Dutch possessions in the Far East, Malaya, Thailand, Indochina, etc. Italy and Spain carve up Africa as colonial masters. Again, what's to stop them? A European stalemate could lead to the USSR, in fact, moving into India too, as Hitler posited. Okay, what does the United States do? They are certainly alarmed by the destruction of the Royal Navy, but I don't think there's necessarily a Pearl Harbor here. In January 41, in our world, Japan begins rice rationing. It is vital then to secure new food sources in the region, and that will bring Japan into conflict with other nations, the US among them, sure. If Japan can simply take those sources and the US is the only power in the region to even worry about, well, it is a balancing act, but a Japan with food and resources in 1941 might well be a Japan that avoids a new entanglement. The US is going to massively rearm with all this going on, and it's going to make clear that the Western Hemisphere is hands off. But I don't think anybody on Earth is interested in challenging that. So Europe falls into darkness. Asia falls into darkness. Africa falls into darkness. America is vigilant. And what happens after that? Oh, Lord knows. That's a dark, dark scenario. Or Italy doesn't send planes to Spain. The Republicans win, but they manage a stable government. World War II begins as it did. Spain is either neutral or an ally, but everything still mainly goes as it did, and not much at all changes. That's how alternate histories are. They can be anything. Maybe you don't think this long one is plausible, and maybe you're right. Feel free to send us your own scenarios about this, and even better, feel free to play Hearts of Iron 4 and the new expansions, and then see how yours turn out when you make the pivotal decisions. It is a truly awesome game. Well, you've seen some of the gameplay now, so you have a pretty good idea. But you will be surprised at the number of variations you'll find as you control your part of the world. I'm sure many of you watching this are here for the first time, so check out our regular episodes. We follow World War II, the actual one, in real time, from beginning to end, week by week, 52 weeks a year. You can click right here to see an episode that features Spain pretty heavily, neutral or no. And do not forget to subscribe and ring that bell. See you next time.